Nobody taught you how money actually works. Not school, not your parents, not the internet. You got taught how to survive with it. Budget, save, don't overspend. And that advice will keep you from going broke. But it will never make you wealthy. Because the habits that build real wealth look almost irresponsible from the outside. Spending more. Ignoring deals. Welcoming debt. Letting windfalls sit untouched. This video is about what wealthy people actually do with money. And why it works. Let's start with what you're probably doing right now. You're watching your account closely. You know roughly what's in there without checking. You feel a small hit of guilt after a big purchase, even a justified one. You get a quiet rush when something goes on sale. You've said, "I can't afford that," about things that might have genuinely changed your life. A course, a tool, a mentor, an opportunity. Because the upfront number felt too high. And on the surface, none of that sounds wrong. That sounds like being responsible. But here's what's actually happening underneath all of it. You're playing financial defense. Every decision is built around protecting what you have, minimizing what goes out, surviving the month. And defense has its place. But defense alone never scores. The people pulling ahead financially aren't more disciplined than you. They're not working harder. They're not earning dramatically more, at least not at the start. They're just deploying money differently, making different trades, asking different questions before they spend. And once you see the specific habits, the actual behaviors, the gap starts to make sense. Habit 1. They buy back time before they buy anything else. Here's a trade most people get backwards their entire lives. The average person trades time to earn money. That's the job. That's the salary. That's the hourly rate. You give hours, you receive dollars. Wealthy people reverse that trade as quickly as possible. They spend money to get time back. Grocery delivery, cleaning services, software that automates a task, an assistant that handles the admin work. These feel like luxuries to most people. To someone building wealth, they're the first investment they make. Here's the math that makes it concrete. If your time is worth $50 an hour and you spend 3 hours doing something you could have outsourced for $40, you didn't save money. You lost $110 worth of productive capacity to avoid a $40 bill. Multiply that across a year and you start to see how people stay stuck. Not because they're lazy, because they're doing the wrong things with their most valuable resource. Time is the only asset that doesn't refill. Every other resource, money, energy, opportunity, can be rebuilt. Time cannot. Which means any dollar that buys you an hour back is one of the best investments you can make. Here's a quick exercise. Take your monthly income and divide it by the hours you worked. That's your current hourly rate. Now look at the last 3 tasks you did yourself to save money. Were any of them worth less than that rate? If yes, you paid for them with the most expensive currency you have. Habit 2. They measure every purchase in hours, not dollars. This one sounds simple. It changes everything. Stop looking at price tags in dollars. Convert them into the hours of your life it costs to earn that amount. A $60 dinner isn't $60. At a $30 hourly rate, that's 2 hours of your life. A $1,000 phone is over 30 hours. A holiday you put on credit and paid off over 6 months. Run that number. It's probably 3 or 4 weeks of your life, once interest is included. When your brain starts processing cost in time instead of currency, it gets brutally honest about what actually matters to you. The impulse buys lose their pull. The things you've been dismissing as too expensive start looking different. Because suddenly you're comparing them to hours of your life, not just a number on a screen. This isn't about becoming obsessive. It's about building one filter that automatically improves almost every financial decision you make. Habit 3. They use debt as a tool, not a lifeline. Debt has a reputation problem, and for good reason. Used wrong, It's the single fastest way to trap yourself financially. Easy to get into, brutal to escape, and designed by the people offering it to keep you paying as long as possible. But here's the distinction that changes how you see it. There are two completely different types of debt. Most people only know one. Bad debt buys things that lose value. A car on finance that drops 20% the moment you drive it off the lot. A credit card balance carrying the cost of things you barely remember buying. A buy now, pay later split on a wardrobe. This debt costs you money and gives you nothing back. Good debt buys things that generate more than they cost. A mortgage on a property that appreciates over time. A business loan that funds equipment earning you revenue. An investment in infrastructure that reduces your operating costs. This debt works for you while you sleep. The goal isn't to avoid debt. It's to make sure whatever you borrow for grows faster than the interest you owe. Ask this about any debt you're considering. In 5 years, will this thing be worth more or less than I paid for it, including interest? If the answer is less, that's consumption debt. If the answer is more, that's investment debt. The words look similar. The financial outcomes couldn't be more different. Habit 4. They invest in themselves before they invest anywhere else. This is the one that gets dismissed most often as self-indulgent, and it's the one with the highest return of almost anything you can do with money. A course that improves your earning capacity. A coach that cuts 2 years off your learning curve. A gym membership that keeps you healthy enough to work at full capacity for an extra decade. These aren't luxuries, they're infrastructure. Here's why this matters financially. Your income is almost entirely determined by your skills, your network, and your ability to execute. Every dollar you put into those 3 things compounds directly into your earning potential. There's no stock, no property, no index fund that has a more direct line to your financial outcomes than your own capabilities. The hesitation most people feel around investing in themselves comes from treating it like a purchase, something that depletes the account. The shift is treating it like any other investment, something that grows the account over time. A $500 course that leads to a $10,000 raise has a return on investment most financial products can't touch. Habit 5. They ignore good deals on things they don't need. This one goes against almost every financial instinct most people have. Deals feel like wins. 50% off feels like gaining something. Limited time offers feel like urgency worth responding to. And marketers have spent billions of dollars engineering exactly that feeling. Because it works. But here's the financial reality. A discount on something you didn't need is not a saving. It's a more efficient loss. You've just been convinced to spend money you weren't planning to spend on something that wasn't on your priority list because the number looked smaller than usual. Wealthy people don't chase deals. Not because they're above it, because they've done the math. Every hour spent hunting discounts, comparing prices on things that don't grow in value, or driving across town to save $8 is an hour that didn't go toward building income. The question they ask isn't, is this a good price? It's, do I actually need this, and does it improve my financial position? If yes, they pay full price without hesitation. If no, it's overpriced at any discount. Next time you feel the pull of a sale, ask yourself this. Would I have been looking for this today if it wasn't discounted? If the answer is no, walk away. The deal found you. You didn't find the need. Habit 6. They treat windfalls like they never happened. Tax return. Bonus. Unexpected inheritance. A side hustle payment that came in bigger than expected. Most people spend these within weeks. Usually on something they've been wanting. A treat, an upgrade, a holiday. And that feels completely reasonable. You earned it. You deserve it. But here's what that pattern is actually doing to your financial trajectory. Every time you reset your savings with a windfall spend, you're canceling the compounding effect that money could have created. A $2,000 tax return invested consistently isn't $2,000 in 10 years. Depending on growth, It's closer to 4 or 5. Spent on a weekend away. It's a memory and a zero balance. The habit wealthy people build, and it genuinely is a habit, not a natural instinct, is to treat unplanned money as invisible. It goes directly into an account that isn't easy to access. It gets put to work before the spending impulse has time to form an argument. Not because they don't enjoy their money, because they've learned the difference between spending for today and building for tomorrow. Habit 7. They only buy what they can truly afford. This sounds obvious. It isn't. Most people define "can afford" as, do I have the money or the credit to buy it right now? That's not affordability. That's availability. Real affordability has a different definition. Can I buy this and feel completely neutral about it afterward? No stress. No reduced sleep. No quietly hoping nothing unexpected comes up for the next 3 months. If a purchase changes your anxiety level, even slightly, it wasn't affordable. It was available. And available debt, available credit, available financing is not the same as money you actually have. Wealthy people buy slowly, deliberately, and only when a purchase costs them nothing beyond the money itself. Because they know that financial stress compounds the same way financial security does. It builds on itself, narrows your options, and keeps you making reactive decisions instead of strategic ones. The measure of a purchase isn't the price, it's how you feel about your financial position the morning after. Here's what's important to say clearly before we finish. If none of these habits were part of how you were raised, that's not a personal failure. Almost none of this is taught anywhere. Not in school, not in most households, not in the generic financial advice that circulates online. The default financial education most people receive is earn, spend less than you earn, save the rest. And that works, to a point. It prevents disaster. It doesn't build wealth. The habits in this video aren't complicated once you see them, but they do require unlearning some things that felt like common sense. That saving every penny is always virtuous. That debt is always dangerous. That deals are always good. That spending on yourself is selfish. None of those things are true across the board. The context changes the moment you stop asking, how do I protect this money? And start asking, how do I make this money work harder than I can? Wealth isn't built in a single decision. It's built in the pattern of thousands of small ones. The decision to outsource something instead of sacrificing your weekend. The decision to walk past a sale on something you didn't need. The decision to let a windfall sit instead of immediately finding something to spend it on. The decision to invest in a skill instead of waiting until you feel ready. None of these feels dramatic in the moment. Compounded across years, they are the entire difference between someone who is always managing and someone who is genuinely building. The gap between those two people isn't talent. It isn't luck. It's a handful of habits, repeated consistently, that most people were simply never shown. Now you have been. What you do next is the only variable left. If this video gave you a new way to think about money, hit the like button. It helps more people find this content. And if you want more videos like this, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss one.